It's time to answer the one question that has raged among Transformer fans for decades. Who has the better minions, Soundwave or Blaster? Well, I don't have the old toys, so we're going to cover their new ones. Said I'd answer the question. Didn't say it'd be a good answer. If you didn't guess by the Soundwave review, I love that these two are back with their original gimmicks and marketing schemes modernized. Really beats all the half-hearted attempts in the past. So since we've seen the main mold reviewed already, we're talking data discs this time, meaning all 8 being sold separately. And just to get them out of the way, I'm starting with their common accessory, the cases. How random is this? Even the cassette cases from the original toys get modernized. There's nothing to them, really. Just a box with a logo on top for storing them in disc mode, which gives you something to do if you bought them by themselves. Though, really, why would you? All of them also have a cutout on the bottom, so the buttons don't get accidentally triggered or held down inside the case, which is a thoughtful inclusion. Simple as that, nothing to them, really. Though I do wish they had a uniform color. If they were all bright purple, they could double as Energon cubes, which I guess the purple ones still could. Let's talk disc modes next. Half the kids watching this have never seen a cassette before, so this is a modern take, something CD-based that's painted up like a circuit board that invokes the whole data part of this. And much to my surprise, they all have different patterns. Well, most anyway. There are a few with patterns mirrored and the color switch to emphasize the opposite lines. It's a simple trick, but it fools the eye pretty well. Now, technically, all these have to do is be round and fit into someone's chest. And you complain about your job, but some manage it better than others. The Laserbeak mold makes a really clean disc with few gaps in the sides, and I'd say the Bot mold does it just as well. Ravage is rough around the edges, and Ramhorn, yeah. Plus, I don't know why his tail won't stay down. But let's get to the meat of these guys. They all transform with a button on their bases. Hopefully these work after one ejection from Soundwave or Blaster, but we'll try this manually to see how well they work. We've seen Laserbeak in my Soundwave review, so we'll start with Sunder. As a straight repaint, he works just as well as Laserbeak does. The wings flipping over really give him a different look from disc mode. On top of this, everything that didn't get paint on Laserbeak did get paint on Sunder. The beak, the eyes, the molding on the back, even details on the front of the wings. It's really what Laserbeak should have been. Plus there's the bonus of being an obscure Japanese character getting a US toy. Ratbat is the remold, and that means he should be as good. But for some reason, mine doesn't work as well. I think it's how he's packaged, because mine has this weird bend to the wings that's throwing off the gimmick. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. Aside from this, he gets a lot of extra paint too, right down to the webbed legs on the back to set his feet apart from his tail. And again, the guns are painted in here. Actually, everything you see in purple is new molding, even the wing shape is different, so he really has a different look from Laserbeak. Then there's the design I have the most of, the robots. They all have the same trick when they automorph. They belly flop. If you get lucky, they'll spring up to their faces, but either way, you'll need to manually transform their feet and lower their arms, their only point of articulation. As legends, they're the same height, but not nearly as bulky. Definitely made for the gimmick rather than the robot. I think the disappointment here is in the details. The molding is pretty nice, they are very identifiable, but Rumble, and yes, that's what the packaging named the blue one, so I'm going with that, doesn't look right with the black parts when they're traditionally a lighter shade of blue. The result is Frenzy looks fine, albeit a little boring in the paint department, and Rumble looks too close to Frenzy. Eject and Rewind don't share that problem. They're supposed to have matching colors, and they actually have better paint no less. Just like Ratbat, the colored plastic has all been remolded from Rumble and Frenzy. Nothing huge beside the chest details. Until you look at the kibble over their shoulders, where they have their G1 guns molded in. That means Rumble and Frenzy are the only ones that didn't have their weapons included in their molding. I'd like it if they were painted, but I think it's cool just to have them worked in. Then there's the quadrupeds. First off, let's look at Ravage. If you were trying to transform into a seal, you've succeeded. But you're supposed to be a jaguar. The tail and rear legs have to be manually transformed, the front as well if your Ravage didn't flip outright. So the effect of automorphing is really lost on him. When he gets to beast mode, it's not much prettier. It's very broken up with lots of gaps and holes. He does have some pluses like the fully painted head, as well as the missile pods that are included and painted. He has some articulation at elbows, knees, tail, and hips, but with the spring-loaded shoulders, most of it can't be used for much. This weird design also makes it hard to get him back into disc mode. The legs have to be put just so they'll get folded up again. It's unfortunate. Ravage is arguably the most popular mini-cassette, so it's a letdown that he turned out so bad. Then there's Ramhorn, everyone's saving grace. Drop him and he has no problem springing up to all fours, and it's a complete transformation. His stockier design lets him get away with that, as well as his disc mode not worrying about exposed beast legs along the sides. Even despite that, his beast mode still has a lot of disc mode showing, making him look very flat in details, aside from the hump they engineered in, which helps the rhino's shape that kinda suffers from all the flat sides. That also makes the horn look a little odd, so while Ravage suffers from being overly complex, Ramhorn seems a little too simplistic, though he comes off far better. He gets painted eyes and guns on all his legs, so he looks quite cool and ready for war. So with all 8 covered, let's rank them from 8th to 1st, starting with Ravage, who places 10th. He's so much worse than the others, I feel like I need to have him lower so number 7 won't look as bad by comparison. Speaking of, number 7 is Rumble. Perfectly fine toy-wise, but the inaccurate color brings him down. Number 6 is Frenzy. Colors are right, but a notch below number 5, Eject, who has better paint and the mold improvements. And number 4, Rewind, who I just like the circuit colors on better. Number 3 is Ratbat, who only suffers because the way he's packaged might bend the wings and cause some automorph glitches. So, since it'll reveal number 2 as well, let's go ahead and say it. Number 1 is Sunder. Yeah, Ramhorn is great. He pops up to all fours, but he takes a point off for the crude disc mode. Plus, I can't help but wonder if people give him a little bit more credit because the other quadruped turned out so bad. I know they're small points, but I have to judge every element of the toy. I honestly think the first mold we got was the best one they made. The transformation has a good trick to change the toy's look. It all flips out correctly and right side up. It's got a little complexity, but keeps it simple enough to work right. And his colors are awesome, and they don't miss any details. All around, my favorite of the discs. In the end, it seems like Blaster's discs benefited from whatever they learned making Soundwaves, and what was reused was usually improved, even when Ravage became Steeljaw. If you're only after one pack, either of Blaster's is a solid pairing, but regardless of its flaws, I can't deny that Ravage and Rumble's pack is just as desirable if you have Soundwave. It's his big 3 after all. Either way, I think this worked out, and I'm glad Hasbro gave this another shot for modern collectors. Oh, and before we end it, just because I can, I love my job.